Hi, I'm Stephen Hamill. I'm Director of Design and Innovation at NBS, and I'm going to give an overview of the progress so far on the BIM Toolkit. What we're going to do is have a look at an overview of the project and where the project came about from, talk a little bit about classification and object templates, and then finally look at the progress so far in terms of the functionality around the digital plan of work. So as an overview of the project, it's funded by government, the Government BIM Task Group, in association with Innovate UK. And if you look at the government's 2025 construction strategy, there's some quite clear objectives in terms of what the government's trying to achieve with construction in the UK. They want to build for cheaper, faster, better for the environment, improve exports in terms of professional services and manufacturers' products overseas. BIM's not going to make this happen as a sort of magic wand, but BIM will be an enabler that allows all four of those main objectives to hopefully be achieved. As part of the 2011 strategy, BIM was mandated, and a lot of work has taken place so far over the last 3 or 4 years, defining a suite of tools that will help the industry adopt BIM, such as PAS 1192 Part 2 and Part 3, in terms of information management through the capital phase and management of it through the operational phase of assets. We've also got the COBE data schema, government soft landings, CIC BIM protocol, but the two remaining missing pieces of the jigsaw is a unified classification system for building projects and infrastructure, and also a free-to-use digital plan of work tool. And that's what this project's all about. So we're going to have live a free and easy-to-use toolkit at a web portal, which allows a project lead to define who is responsible for what and when at the various stages of an asset's life cycle, from strategy all the way through to in-use. We'll have a pan-industry classification system with well-defined level of graphical detail and information guides, which align to typical stages. And this is fundamental to the successful delivery of projects to BIM Level 2 by 2016, allowing project teams to save time, reduce risk, and help users follow best practice to deliver better client outcomes during design, construction, and the operation phases. Before I show some of the live product developments to date, I just want to recap a little bit on classification. And if we jump across, what we're going to do is publish a new version of Uniclass, which is aligned to the international standard ISO 12006 Part 2 framework. And this will have a common set of classifications for buildings and infrastructure across different classification tables as objects break down from the largest of objects down to the smallest of objects. So in this example, we can see there's a table for complexes, and a complex could be a holiday village, or it could be an entire sort of highway project on infrastructure side. As you get down to entities, there's a table for entities, and that could be a building in the holiday village example, or a bridge on the highway project. And then you go down further and have things like activities, elements, spaces, and finally you get down to the level of systems and products. So in this simple example on the screen, you can see a system could be a ceiling system, and that's made up of a number of products such as the ceiling tile, the fasteners, the supports. If you think of that on the infrastructure side, a rail track system would be made up of the rail, the sleepers, the ballast, the fasteners. So let's jump across now and have a look at the software so far and some of the content developments in the context of the software. Okay, so what we can see on the screen now is the latest software in development. So the first bit of content I'm going to search for is one of those level of definition guides for a bridge joint. So I search for joint. In the top right hand side you get some suggested searches, but I'm going to click return there, and you can see that's returned 249 objects that are relevant to the search word joint. What I'm going to do is filter to show objects of classification type system, and you can see the numbers are refined down to 45. And then I know it's about bridges. I'm a civil engineer, so I'm going to jump across and filter that down to some of the content we've got coming through for civil engineering, and have a little look at this buried expansion joint system. If you scroll down the page a little bit here, you can see that this sort of level of definition guidance page is split into two: level of detail and level of information. Level of detail covering the geometry, and level of information covering the property set information that's associated with that geometry. So as you scan down, you can see, you can click on these and make them bigger, but at an early stage of a project, you maybe just want to put the approximate sort of coverage of the joint areas of a bridge deck And as you move further down, you start to get more geometric detail as you go through these bandings. And you've got nice guidance notes on the right hand side and some nice illustrations, which if somebody asked for LOD 5 for a bridge joint, anyone can come to this free website and see what LOD 5 is the equivalent of. If I jump back up to the top of the screen and toggle across to the level of information guides, I can then come down and see that you've got a similar idea of bandings, where information's added to the design all the way through to construction and handover. So the banding 3 there is the design develops. You're talking about the bridge joint in terms of its overall performance. So load bearing capacity, slip and skid resistant, noise emission, vibration. So again, that's the construction language. If somebody asks for LOI 3 on a project about a bridge joint, that's the information that they require. As you go further down, there's the components the bridge joint's made out of, things such as expansion joint, bridging plate, flexible filler, flashings, waterproofing element. And there's object templates for all disciplines. We've looked at a civil engineering example, but if I was a service engineer doing a building project, I might want to look at the level of development guidelines for fans. So I do a search for fan, and again, you can filter further down, but let's look at a propeller fan. And there you can see the different bandings again. So at the early stage of a project, it's basically a drawing of a cylinder, but what's important there is the access and maintenance zones. So thinking about soft landings for the client early on in a project, not just does this propeller fan work, but is there enough space around it in the plant room? Is the plant room large enough so that when the fan needs maintained at a later date, that can happen? Scrolling down the page, you can see the geometric detail building up as you move through the bandings. Now, if I jump across to the level of information for the fan, what I want to do is scroll right to the bottom of the page here to sort of level of information 6. And what you can see is that we've got the standard Kobe 2012 properties for asset types, and then a few sort of additional ones based on some consultation with the FM community. So LOD and LOI guides for objects across all of the disciplines. Now, working with classifications, it's wrong to assume that everybody calls everything the same and everybody knows the classification inside out. So what's absolutely key to this development is allowing people to find the content they want quickly without being a classification expert. And a little example of where we're introducing great construction relevant search technology and natural synonyms can be given maybe by, if I pick an example, maybe intruder alarm or burglar alarm. In the classification we've called it intruder detection alarm, but if you search for burglar alarm and then filter again by system, you see it finds the intruder detection alarm system. Another good example would be maybe where the manufacturer brand name is being used. So if you think of something like McAdam, which is used commonly around the construction industry, you search for McAdam and there you find the asphalt concrete. And just another quick example could be with abbreviations. So low voltage systems may be commonly known as LV systems. So you don't have to know exactly, you've got to search for the full word low voltage systems. You search for LV system and there it finds the low voltage distribution system. A nice example on classification mappings, if I search for cubicle, let's just drop down to panel cubicle system here. You see you've got the original NBS work results code, but we're also mapping across to the new Uniclass classification system, which will be published at the end of the project, and also the best mapping on the RICS NRM 1/NRM 3. It's not always a one-to-one mapping, so I can show another example where I search for Dorset. So let's find a Dorset system. And you can see that actually aligns to 2 areas of NRM depending on the context of that door in the project. So we'll have a little line of guidance there. It'll come through, working well with RICS to make sure that there's classifications for everyone and people can find what they want, whatever their discipline. So let's have a little look at actually putting together a digital plan of work and working with it. We're part through the developments here, halfway in, but you've got a sign-in mechanism, so I can come in and go into my private area where my project plan of work is. So let's just sign in just with a dummy email address here now. And that's going to go into the area that is private to yourself. So you can see here I've got a My Projects label which has popped up. And when I click on here, you can see that I've currently got one project. Now this area is, if you start at the top of the screen and move down, not all of this is functional yet, but we've got a project with a little bit of metadata, a fictional high school. You can add participants and define what role those participants are playing. And then along this top navigation bar, you can see we've got all the stages of a project life cycle, from strategy through design to construction, handover, and then in use. And against any of these stages, you can define the roles and you can define the information that's required in terms of terminology may change by launch, but currently what we're calling tasks and objects. We've looked already at objects, but let's just spend a little bit of time looking at the tasks. So I could jump to stage 0 here and then scan down. You can see there's a number of default tasks against the different project roles that would be likely on that particular project. So you can see here, identify strategic brief. On a typical project, that would be the job of the client. And you can click on these and see a little line of guidance against them. And you can come in and add your own tasks. You can edit tasks and delete tasks. So let's just show an example of that. I'm going to jump across to the construction stage. And you can scan through these tasks and remove the ones that aren't relevant for your project. You can amend and tweak and add guidance notes. But if you wanted to add a new task, it's as simple as coming across to the right-hand side. You click on the task, you give it a unique ID for that project. So let's make label all mint. I'll assign that to the contract administrator. The organization hasn't been appointed yet. That's going to be the contract administrator. And then add a little note. And save the changes. And you'll see this task 5015 then just sort of drops in. And that's there. And you can see information about it. And I can come in if I want and edit it. So I want to come in and change that to MEP equipment. And when I do the save, so halfway through the project now, we've got tasks in and we've got that full round trip of creating tasks, editing tasks, and then finally deleting tasks as well. What we're going to do over the next few time boxes is take that ability to create, edit, and delete items and move it into the objects area. So I think we might have a little bit mocked up here. If I was at stage 3 of a project to look at the objects, we've just got some dummy ones in here. This doesn't actually work yet, this button, but it's coming soon. But you could look at something such as a stick curtain walling system. We will have the ability to assign responsibility maybe to the structural engineer, and then you can see those little LOD and LOI codes which will be clickable. So you'll see the LOD and LOI guidance from the context of the tool itself by clicking those little buttons. And I'm at stage 3, and as you'd expect, you can see lots of number 3s for the LOD and the LOI, but in certain places you may want to have more detail earlier. So more geometric detail is required because it's cost significant with a large lead time. But sometimes you might want less LOD. Maybe for furniture you just want to have cuboids of the objects, and so you can vary the LOD and the LOI if you want less graphical information but potentially more sort of computable property set. And it's one last thing just to say, we've got the export functionality at the top, so you can take this information from the cloud environment and export it into like a Microsoft Office friendly version for inclusion in documents such as employees' information requirements, BIM execution plans, professional appointments, design responsibility matrices. And you'll also be able to export into open data formats such as COBie and IFC so that this information can be digitally checked. So I think we've made some good progress over the first 3 months. We've got a very busy 3 months ahead of us until the end of the funding period, but Hopefully you can see that progress is good on both the content development front and on the software development front. Before we finish here, what I'd like just to demonstrate is that all of the software developments we do at NBS now online it's not a case of just developing for a PC or a Mac, but we want to make the user experience fantastic for end users no matter what device they use. They may be using an iPad or a Windows phone, or they may be on the PC. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is if we come to the BIM Toolkit on I think this is an iPhone 5, you can see that all of the different workflows have been thought about and the same website responds, so it works equally well on a mobile device. So just to show two examples here, the first one is a search. So I'm going to search for that bridge joint again. I type in joint into the search engine, and when I click return, you see the 249 results. Let's just refine them for civil engineering. Drop down the page, and there's the buried expansion joint system. So you can imagine wanting that information but not being sat at your desk. You may be on a train or going to a meeting, and you can scan down there and see all of that fantastic information represented in a great user experience on the mobile phone. On the project information, I'll jump across and go to my project, and you can see that the screen's changed to show the information in a readable format, even though it's a very sort of thin screen. I toggle that across into the landscape version, and you can see that all interacts quite nicely. If you go to our website, thenbs.com/BIM Toolkit, you'll find that we put regular updates up on this web portal. There's little links across to social media like LinkedIn and Twitter if you want to get involved in the online discussion. And also there'll be notes coming up soon in terms of where you can actually come and see live presentations and meet the staff at places like EcoBuild, BIM Show Live, and roadshows we'll be doing as we sort of end Q1 this year. And finally, if people want to actually get involved in live testing of this, there's also the hyperlink on how to join our NBS beta testing group. Thank you very much.